Hey guys, welcome back to Faith Fit Mom. I'm Latasha Alana, and I'm so excited to share part 2 of my story on how I knew I was supposed to move to Houston. And what I'm going to be sharing are just different confirmation and signs that solidified my move. And one of the things that I'm about to share, you're going to be like, whoa, I don't know how you did that. I could never do that. You're brave. You're crazy. But if you want to hear all the rest of those things that God revealed to me, that I knew, peace in my heart, that this was the place for me to be, you're not going to want to go away. You want to stay tuned, and I'm going to share the rest of my story, okay? I'll try not to make it too long and lengthy, but it's a lot, all right? So you're going to want to be glued in. If you didn't see part 1, definitely stop and go look at it so that you can get the full story, okay? But moving forward till now, like I said in the last video, my mom did pass away last year in July 2018. So I have a lot of family from Texas, a lot of uncles and cousins and so forth. But only one cousin, one representative from Texas that came, and he came with his wife and his daughter. And so this was my first time meeting him. Okay, so I knew about him because him and his wife, they had came to New York like a year or two before, and my mom was super excited. She was so happy to hang out with them. They went to Carmine's in New York. That's a really popular Italian restaurant in Times Square. And so she had such a good time when she came back. And I was like, well, these people must be awesome, because she's just talking about them, and just excited about things that they were going to do and blah, blah, blah. And so I was just like, okay, and then I guess I followed my cousin on Facebook. So, but at the funerals when I finally met him. And so I told him yeah, I want to move to Houston. I need something different. So I told him I'm going to come out there for maybe 2 weeks, check it out, see how things are, and then come back, when I'm ready. And to make that move. And so he was like, okay, we have a room for you, me and my son. And I was like, all right, great. I'll visit you and I'll visit my other cousins out there. And he said, no problem. Just let me know when you're ready. All right, cool. So that was in July. And in August coming up, I had purchased 2 tickets for my mom and I to go to this entrepreneurial conference called Millions Conference, put on by Tiffany Montgomery, amazing woman of God. I love her broadcast live on Periscope and Instagram. She's such just a spiritual inspiration, and she teaches on how to run your business God's way, right? So she was putting on a conference in August, and I had paid for my mom and I to go. But, I ended up having to donate the ticket. Anyway, my godfather had called and, he reached out to me and was he saw the post on Facebook and he was so shocked to hear the news. And, we started talking about everything, what happened. And, I was telling him, yeah, I'm going to go to Houston. I want to get out of here for a bit and just, God, I just feel like I want to move out there. So he was like, oh, wow, Houston? He's like, I live in Houston. I was like, you do? And, this is one of my mom's longtime friends. And, so he was telling me, I was like, how long you been out there? He said about 4 years. And I was like, okay. So he's asking me if you want to move out here, what is it that you want to do? What type of job? Where do you want to live? So he was giving me all these resources and just really helping me out. And I was getting really excited. I'm like, yeah, oh my God. My godfather's out there. And so I was like, yeah, I'm prepping. And meanwhile, while I'm preparing for this conference, I'm cleaning up the house, looking for papers, shredding papers, donating things, because my mind's I really want to move. But I hadn't really confirmed it yet. I hadn't really 100% made the decision. But I had told my godfather, I was like, God told me that I should move. And he was like, really? And I said, yeah, I really want to move to Houston. And God showed me all these signs that, this is where he wants me to be. And just the fact that knowing you now live out there is even, cooler, whatever, somebody I know. So he was like, okay. So, and I told him, so I'm going to this conference in a few weeks. And then when I come back, I'm going to go out to Houston for like 2 weeks and then, see if this is really someplace I want to move to. And one thing I forgot to mention is that Millions Conference was actually in Texas. And he was like, well, didn't you just tell me like God told you to move? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, well, but why would you do all of that back and forth, spending all that money on airfare and, all this transportation? And, he was like, he asked me, he was like, do you really want to move? I said, yeah. And he said, do you believe it's Houston? I said, yeah. He said, God told you. I said, yes. And he said, well, if God told you to go, then, this is something that you should do. If you believe it in your heart that this is something that God told you to do, it doesn't really make sense for you to go to check it out and, come back and, do all this back and forth. And I was like, you're right. I was like, that's not really what I want to hear. I was super scared that he mentioned that. So it marinated in my mind for like a day. And I was like, what is he trying to say? He's trying to tell me that I should book a one-way flight and just come on. So I texted him and I was like, are you telling me that I should book a one-way flight? And he texts back like, yes. And with like a laughing emoji, like, yeah. And then he called me. He was like, yes. He called me on the phone, was like, yes, that is what I meant. He was like, if you believe that God told you this, then you should go and take the leap. So he was like my first push. I was like, wow, like, I don't know if I can do that. I was like, So, but I got what he was saying. And if, he was basically saying, take that leap. If you believe this is what you believe. And if God told you, then you should really just book a one-way flight. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to do that. That's big. But I wasn't 100% sold. I wasn't 100% ready. Well, anyway, Millions Conference comes, and this was the first time that I was going away and my mom not here for me to babysit my son. So I was like super scared, super terrified, but I knew I had to go to Millions Conference because I had to get spiritually fed, because I was just really down and out in a lot of grief and just in tears like every single day. Didn't want to be in the house by myself. Like, it was just hard. So it was really a hard period, but I'm so glad I went to Millions Conference. So glad, because the things that were said at Millions Conference solidified my move. And when I got back home from Millions Conference, I booked my flight. So I got back the Sunday and I booked my flight the Monday without hesitation. So there were so much great speakers, but I want to share like what Tiffany Montgomery spoke about. She spoke about not letting other people limit you from making moves. That was a good one. She talked about, like, in this season of our life, access will be granted. So whatever it is that we pray for, because we are under open heaven, whatever that we pray for and that we're believing in our heart, God is going to give it to us, right? And so she was saying access has been granted. Whatever you are praying for, if it's a job or a business, whatever, a move, God's going to give it to you. Access granted. And she said, this is a season of agility. Agility is the ability to move and think quickly in atmospheres that you are normally not used to operating in. I'm like, oh my God. Wow. Okay, God, I hear you. All right, that was one speaker. Then Sophia Ruffin, Fireball speaker. She's awesome. She comes on talking about how God told her to move. And she on the other hand, didn't want to move, right? I want to move. I wanted to move to Houston. I was ready, okay? But I just needed that confirmation. So she was talking about how God was telling her to move and she didn't want to move and she had to move back home. And then she also compared her, what God was telling her to Genesis chapter 12, verse 1, when God told Abraham to move from your parents' house, from your parents' land, and he wants you to go to a new land. I was like, man, a preacher at my church just spoke about that. So I heard it, but I didn't pay attention really to him. But when she spoke about it, I was like, that's another confirmation about Abraham, in Genesis chapter 12. And then she's talking about her move. I was like, okay, God, What are you saying? So she spoke about the spirit of indecision and people pleasing. And a lot of times people don't make moves, or they don't make certain decisions or do what's right or what feels good for them and for their life. They're afraid of what other people are going to think and say about them. They're afraid of not being liked. They're afraid of people talking about them. And she said, you got to get over that spirit of indecision. She said it is a demon that will hold you back and stagnate you. I was like, oh my God, because I already feel stagnant in this, I already feel stagnant. And I'm like, I don't want to feel like that anymore. So she was saying how God gave you a vision, but you're letting people's opinions hold you back because you're trying to please them. And so your thoughts are being tormented because you are double-minded. You can't figure out who you want to trust. You're going to trust God's decision, or you're going to trust the people's opinions about what they say about you and what they think. She said, you got to get delivered from that. You got to get sick and tired of worrying about people and what they feel about your future. I was like, oh my God. And she said a whole lot more. And I'm going to have to do a separate video on my testimony at Going to Millions conference. But that was awesome. She said, you have to decide. You have to make a decision. I was like, oh my God. Okay. So then the last speaker I want to touch on is Eric Thomas. So Eric Thomas, #1 motivational speaker in the world, also known as ET. He gets up and talks about your environment is very critical to your destiny. He said, whatever environment you're in or environment that you're going to is very critical. Now, ET speaks with power. And when he talks, you listen, because he go in. Right? So he had mentioned that there are 2 types of people in the room. There are some people that they're here, their heart is in the right place, they're doing the right thing, but they're going to get empowered and strengthened to go back to the toxic environments, toxic relationships that they just left. Get all this rich word and just get empowered to operate in that toxic environment. Then he said there's another group of you who are going to be strengthened and empowered to get up and leave that situation, have the power and the strength and the faith to leave that situation and go into a better environment. I'm like, oh my God, that's how I feel. Like, I feel so like stuck and stagnant in New York, not making enough money, just like always like penny pinching and just getting above, or just like, you feel like you drowning. So that really was powerful to me. And he said, in order for you to not be in that number of going back, you have to decide and make a decision. There go that word decision. Okay. So I was like, okay, God, I hear you. I hear you. You want me to move. This is it. Okay. I had peace in my heart. So that's why when I got back to New York, I was like, all right, let me book my flight for me and my son. And I did it. And I was scared, but I was excited at the same time. And I had peace in my heart. Another thing is that before, like I think I mentioned in the other video, but I had mentioned that, me and my mom, we were planning on moving. And she had told me, she's like, if you want to go, she said, go. Don't be like me. When her mom passed away, her uncles out here, the same uncles I'm with now, told her come to Houston, but she didn't want to go because it was like fear. She didn't want to leave, what was familiar. And she said, don't do that. She said, don't do it. It's like she looked at and she's like, don't be like me. I was like, okay, and I didn't know that God was like setting me up to like, he put that back in my remembrance. Like, even my mom gave me the okay to move. Right. So I was like, and those were the things that gave me peace, that I was making the right decision. So I'm all excited. I tell my cousin, I call him up. I'm like, yeah, I booked a one-way flight. So me and my son, we're coming, and I made up my mind that I'm actually leaving for real, for real. He was like, okay. He's like, all right, we got a room for you. Like, I said September 29th. He said, okay, we're here. We'll pick you up from the airport. I was like, all right. And I was like, wow, I'm really doing this. Like, and it's not, I didn't ask him. I told him. I'm like, why you didn't even ask him if you could stay. You just told him like, I'm coming, I'm staying with you. And, and he just said okay. And then I was just like, you know, of course the devil came and he spoke to me. He was like, what are you doing? You don't even know them like that. Why would you do that? The devil came into my mind. Oh yes, he crept in there, and I was started to get scared and nervous. And then, you know, I had family members, people that was like, whoa, why would you do that? You don't really know them like that. You're like, what are you doing? Like, I don't think this is the time for you to move. I had my naysayers. Yes, I did. But I had a lot more people that were for me, and they were excited for me and happy that I was doing this. And I was just like, I have a lot more peace in my heart than I have doubt. So I started looking at YouTube videos to get inspired. I saw a lot of videos of people moving from other states to Houston, and I was like, oh, that's so cool, blah, blah, blah. I found 2 YouTubers that had moved from New York, but they moved to Dallas. And I was like, man, I'm so inspired. And when they were sharing their reasons why they moved, I was like, yes, that's how I feel. Oh my God. So I know I'm not crazy. I know I made the right decision by booking this ticket, because they feel the same way I feel. So shout out to Xayli Barclay. She is awesome. She is incredible. I had to email her. I emailed her. I was like, oh my God, your video was really inspiration, and it confirmed that I'm making the right decision. And she was just so touched, and she wrote back. She was like, thank you for sharing this, you know, because sometimes you do videos and you don't know if you really impacted anybody's life. But I had to share. I was like, you know, and I just shared my story with her. She's like, oh my God. So she is actually now my video marketing coach. So shout out to her. She is such a gem. And I haven't met her in person yet, but we talk, we communicate. And so she is now like a friend of mine. So shout out to Xayli. And then I'm going to leave her videos, the link to her videos below, so you guys can check it out. So if any of you who are thinking about moving out of New York, watch her videos too. And another guy, Built for Anything, he shared his reasons why he wanted to move, why he moved out of New York and he moved to Dallas, and his pros and cons. So I'll leave a link to his videos too. So yes, I was definitely nervous. I was scared out of my mind to move, but I had so much confirmation that I could not, it would have been a slap in the face to God that I got all that rich word from Millions Conference to not make this move. Like, it couldn't have been more plain as day that the main message of that conference was about getting over indecision and people pleasing, and people sharing their stories about God telling them to move. That's not a coincidence. That's not happenstance. That's God telling me, get up and go. I gave you access, and now go, right? So I did it, and on September 29th, I moved here, and this is the shirt that I wore on that day. It is Romans 8:28, all things are working together for my good, right? And I wore this shirt. Shout out to Wear Your Praise Apparel, Roma from Wear Your Praise Apparel. This is her clothing line, so I will leave a link to her clothing line. And so this was like a sign of faith, like, God, okay, I'm doing this, and I believe that all things are going to work together for my good. You gave me so many signs. Please do not let me down. This is an example of my faith that signifies that I believe that you are going to work everything out for my good. And I'm so glad I made the decision. You guys know how happy I am about my move, and this is one of the best decisions I've made in my life. So I really hope that this video encouraged someone to step out of your comfort zone. Whatever it is, a big decision that you need to make, get over, pray about it, ask God to give you signs and confirmation in a way that you can understand. God gave me confirmation, and he repeats things, okay? He sends me messages visually, audibly. So however you get those confirmations, just stay in tune to it, right? You gotta be in prayer. Fast as much as you can till you get an answer, till you have peace. They always say, how do you know when you hear the voice of God? Is when you have peace in your heart. And I had that peace, and so that's why I was like, I'm going. I don't care what nobody's telling me. No one knows how I feel in my body. You don't know how I feel just drifting away, and I feel like I'm going to snap and lose my mind, and that's not going to be healthy parenting for my son. So I have to be in a space that is not toxic. I have to be in a space that's fresh and new so that I can heal properly and be a wonderful mother to my son. And I thank God so much that I made the decision And now I'm here. So I hope this encouraged you. I hope this blessed you. Please get out of your comfort zone and take that leap. God got you. Get in the word, get in the scripture, and just find a scripture that you believe in and hold on to that word, and God is going to see you through, okay? So follow me on Instagram at Latasha Alana so you can see like my everyday, day-to-day stuff that I got going on, because I'm like touring and showing things. And check out my blog at faithfitmom.blog. I am Latasha Alana. Thank you for watching part 2, and I have so much more to share. Pros and cons about Houston, things I like and dislike about New York. All of that is coming up, so you definitely want to stay tuned.